Incoming transmission. The Stank Space podcast contains vulgar language and mature topics. So if you're a kid, turn your ears off. And make sure your elderly Christian grandmother is not listening. End of transmission.
Hey everybody, welcome to Stank Space on the Stank Space podcast. If you are returning, hey, what's up? Missed you, love you, hope everything's going great. If you're a first-time viewer, yo, stick around, enjoy it, go check out another video. Maybe after this one, become a sub. That's short for subscriber, not submissive. Today is a solo episode, and I know what you're saying, like, oh, Big Stank, didn't we just watch a solo episode with Jillian where she talks about podcast drama? Yeah, you did. And there's a reason you did. It's still a little uncomfortable for me to talk about and be on camera, so just put up with my awkwardness. But recently, last Wednesday, about a week ago, on the today's the 23rd, so it was the 16th. My dog died. Not in like a horrible way, like she wasn't hit by a car or anything, but her name was Goblin. Full name Goblin Patricia Stanco. I had her for 10 years. She died on her 10th birthday. And usually I would like go off of her birthday by like being a little later in the summer because that's when like I technically got her. But her real birthday is the 16th, so, just a cool little coincidence, I guess. But yeah, she died in her sleep. She spent the whole day with us. And we didn't really know. We noticed she was acting a little weird, but she was 10, right? So she was at that age, especially as a pit bull, where like climbing up and down stairs is getting a little harder because of her hips and stuff. And so we thought maybe that's just what it was she was moving a little slower and stuff. Because it wasn't anything strange to us. And I'm just diving right in. So I've tried to record this like 15 times now. And I think this is just the best way to do it. But yeah, so she passed away in her sleep at the foot of our bed. It was very sudden and wasn't painful or anything. She was snoring like a fucking jet engine, per usual. I was just starting to fall asleep. And I heard her kind of like do a little whimper, like a little cry. And we got ants in the house recently, so I thought maybe like one of them had bit her or some shit, because that's what it sounded like. So I just got up and went to go look at her, and she was looking really weird and like lethargic and just like barely responding to me. I was like, "Hey, Goblin, are you okay? What's wrong?" And she kind of looked up at me and then kind of slumped back down like her head and stuff. And so I had Tori turn the light on, and I was like, man, she's acting really weird. And like I held her head in my hands, and it was like her head was like really, really heavy. Like she wasn't even trying to lift her head up, when normally she's like, okay, I'm good to go. Like, so I told Tori, I was like, yeah, something's really wrong. And Tori went to left our room, went to the bathroom real quick. I think she just went to like grab the the little flashlight we keep in our medicine cabinet. But within the time that she, like the 10 seconds, she walked out in the hall and grabbed the flashlight and came back. Goblin was passed away. And I checked for a heartbeat and everything, and it was very clear. And it was hard. I don't think I've cried that hard since my dad passed when I was in high school. Which, funny enough, is basically the time that I got Goblin. So she's been with me through a lot. And, I don't want to sound like one of those sappy assholes. It's like, my dog was the most important special dog on this planet and blah, 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 blah. Like, but to me, she was, like, in a sense that, like, She saved my life. More so in the sense that at a time where I really wanted to end my own life, or I didn't see any value in continuing to live, she was something that I was duty bound to take care of. And through taking care of her, I just learned to like get out of that mindset. And she really helped me start to kind of figure out who I was, and gave me a reason to like get up and go out and like do those things where maybe necessarily I wouldn't have been able to do without her needing it. So pretty much from day one, she's been like my best friend. And like I said, we knew she's been getting old. We knew it was coming, but we were somewhere of the expectancy of around like 2 more years, maybe 3. We really like my guess was like 13, because her parents lived a long time, till they were like 16 or 17, and she was a pit bull and a boxer, mixed, and then a little bit of Shar-Pei. So yeah, it was just very unexpected. It happened unexpectedly, but I'm grateful that it was peaceful and not violent. Like, she didn't get hit by a car or anything. She didn't have to be put down. It was just, she spent the day with us. And then, came to bed and laid down by her feet and said peace out. And it took me a while to, which is why I'm talking about this. Like, the reason Jillian had to do her solo episode was we tried to record it together and the audio was bad and we were going to re-record it, but then, Goblin passed, and it was just like so bad for me that I couldn't really be on camera or like say anything or do anything. And Tori was incredibly supportive, and I know she was very, very close with my dog too. So it was really selfless of her to kind of put down her own sadness to help me. And I don't think she'd ever really seen me like that. Like, she's seen me cry or whatever, but she's never seen me like devastated before. So, and I could tell that she was trying to figure out like how to get around that and help me the best that she could. So, she was really important in helping me get to this point right here. And then I posted, which I'll put it up here, on my Facebook, because I posted a lot about Goblin on my Instagram and Facebook and social medias, and people love her. Like, people loved her. In the sense of like, there was always just some funny story I could tell, or funny picture I could share. And she was just one of those dogs where people on the internet were like, oh my God, I love that. And so when I posted about her passing and a little emotional message, she, like, I think it got more likes and reacts and comments than like, I think the only thing that rivaled that was the birth of my son when I announced that. And that really, like, I was like, wow, like, my dog just through Facebook was an animal that people like genuinely felt connected to and like loved. And that really helped me push forward through most of the beginning stages of my depression, was just like knowing that like not only was she loved, but we were loved, and people were here for us. And I came up with the idea, of course, like, I've got to do an episode. I know I have to. I know it's really hard for me right now to record or do anything other than exist. So why not do an episode about Goblin and share with an even bigger chunk of the world and immortalize her forever as this dog that so many people loved, including myself. And then I had the idea of asking you guys to share your stories with me about your pets. And I got so many. First of all, like an outpouring of messages. So for this last week, I've kind of just been sifting through them and finding the ones that all of them were great. All the stories were great. Obviously, like, you can't beat loving your animal, you know. But I chose stories for people who are close to me, or that I know personally and who knew Goblin. I also chose stories of people who seem to have a similar relationship with her, and also people whose stories tied into things that I could talk about with Goblin. So if you send me a story or pictures or something and you don't see them here, it isn't because I ignored you. It's because I literally got so many I could do like a 6-hour podcast. And if you don't know how hard it is to talk and fill just 1 hour, then you know, if you do know how hard it is to talk and fill 1 hour, then you understand how crazy it is that I was sent enough material to fill for something unimaginable in amounts of time recording. So I just, there was no special thing that guided me in picking them other than I knew sharing these could lead into stories about Goblin and interweave and intertwine and really just do what I wanted to do with this episode, which was to celebrate her life and tell those funny stories about her that people know her for, and maybe a few that I've never told before. But yeah, so anyway, thank you to the people, all of you who reached out to me, reached out to my family, sent me stories, and are just there for me during this hard time. It's weird to talk about because it's like, she wasn't a human. She wasn't like, it's not like my kid died or anything, right? It's like, but at the same time it is. Like I said, I raised her for 10 years, from a puppy. So it is, in a sense, a lot like losing a child. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, my dog is my everything, my little infant baby. Like, I don't dress her up in, I never dressed her up in a onesie or anything, and carried her around in or pushed her around in a stroller. But she was very important to me on the level of more than just a dog, I think. Family. My kid. So yeah, let's get away from that depressing shit. And we're going to jump into the first story that I chose. I wrote all of them down because I'm recording with my phone, so I can't read off my phone and record off my phone, blah, blah, blah. You get it. It's technology. So, the first story that was sent to me is from a close friend and basically adopted family member, Melody Savitz. She actually sent me 2 stories. One was about, the one that we're going to start with is about when she brought Goblin home to my family and me for the first time. So yeah, she writes, I remember bringing Goblin home to you guys. I had taken your mom to the cellar, and originally the plan was to get just one puppy that your mom had seen online. Hi, Mom. I think her name was Moon. Yeah, it was. I remember that dumb dog. She says, when we got there, they told us that all the puppies were claimed except for one. Her name was Silver at the time, and we felt bad for her because she was so cute. But we paid for Moon and got to meet her and play with her before we left. A few days later, around the time Moon was ready to be picked up, we saw that the sellers had posted that Silver still hadn't been claimed and would have to go to the APL, which is the, shelter, local shelter for dogs. Which is really weird to me. But anyway, so I told your mom that I would pay the rehoming fee if she would take Moon and Silver together. She said yes, so we went to pick her up. Of course my mom said yes. Anyone who knows my mom knows that at a time, she had more animals than Noah had on the ark, bro. Like, my mom was a nut job back then. But anyway, so she said yes, so we went to pick her up and brought them both home. I remember that Silver was immediately attached to me. And then you renamed her Goblin Patricia. Ooh, little whistle right there. Goblin Patricia. Your mom hated it. Yes, she fucking did. But all of the kids and you fought her for months until she realized that the new name fit her perfectly. Yeah, I remember all of that. At the time when we got her, Tyler it was like his first or second album, mixtape, whatever, had dropped, and I was super into it because, I like weird music. And she was just such like a little terrorist of a puppy. Like, she was gross. She farted all the time. She burped in your face before licking you. She did crazy things like tearing apart shoes and stuff, and she definitely needed that time and attention to be trained. But I'm also a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan, and so the way that she was acting reminded me of a goblin. But I was like, she's so pretty that she can't just be called Goblin. She's got to have a pretty middle name. And so I thought like Patricia was very fancy and fitting. And when we were reading like ye olde names that were like fancy, like Elizabeth and Dinglestock and shit like that, she perked up at Patricia. So we decided to call her Goblin Patricia, which was way better than the names my sister and mom tried to give her, which was Penguin, and then it was Peebles. And thank God they stopped doing that shit because Goblin was like, no, disgusting. And she would only answer to Goblin, so it sunk in and it stuck. And I'm really going to try to find a puppy picture of her to show you. She had giant feet, and she was just very adorable and sweet. And then much like a goblin, I guess, as soon as you turned your back, mischief and mayhem. And so it was very fitting. Melody's next story is of her own pet. She writes, my first dog that belonged to me was a stray yellow lab that we took in. Her name was Lady. My mom and dad both said we couldn't keep her, so we put signs up for her and got her food and water to take care of her while we waited for someone to come claim her. She stayed outside during the day, but we brought her in at night and kept her in our laundry room. The next day we did the same thing, and I went outside and played with her during the day. As one would, I would assume. My mom told me that she would watch us play, and there's this game where I would roll on the ground in one direction, and Lady would roll after me, copying me until she rolled the other way, and I would follow her and copy her back. That's adorable. My mom said that that's when she knew that Lady would be staying if nobody came to get her. My dad was still very persistent that she would not be staying, though. Yeah, that's a very dad thing. Like, I'll tell the story after I finish reading yours. A week later, nobody had come to get Lady or contacted my parents about her. My dad's Saturday routine was to wake up early and go to the library. This time he woke me up and brought me along. When we got there, he took me to the pet section and we got books on dog care. He told me if I could learn to care for her, then I could keep her. And I did. 5 years later, we lost Lady to cancer, but she was a great dog until the end. That's an awesome, that's a great origin story. How funny that, like, you just randomly found this stray dog and she connected with you so hardcore to the point where you could roll around in the backyard with her. My dad was the same way, actually. So I got Goblin as a puppy like a month before my dad committed suicide. And one of the things, like, he wasn't at the house for that last month. He was in Texas with his family, so he would message me like every day or every other day. And it was actually one of the last conversations that I had with my dad, was just him saying like, that he saw the pictures of my dog, and he's like, "Are you gonna take care of it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You can't, you can't keep a dog if you're not gonna be responsible for it. It's a living thing that depends on you." And he like hammered that responsibility home, and I was like, "I understand." And I told him like I was excited for him to come home to meet her, and he was like, "Yeah, I am too. She's beautiful." And then he told me he loved me, and then that was pretty much the last time we talked before he committed suicide. But my mom almost had us get rid of her because she, along with the other dog that was living with us, who was like a little miniature pinscher named Vixen, they tore apart my mom's L sectional couch that she like just got from Aaron's. So she was still making payments on it. They tore it to pieces. I mean, like, down to the wood frame. It was like leather and cloth. They like ripped it apart. And I remember like waking up at 6 a.m. because I had to get up early to get ready to go to school. And when I walked into the living room, it was a disaster. Like, I didn't know a couch had that much stuffing and other random shit in it. And it was a big couch, so I guess it makes sense. But it was like up to like my knees. It was like wading through water, but instead of water, it was couch remnants and fluff. And then at the front door, right in the middle of my mom's shoe, was just a perfect poop, like spiraled with a little point top, just like the emoji. And yeah, so my mom hated Goblin, and it was like, yo, she was just following after the alpha dog here, which is your stupid min pin, that does this stuff all the time. So my mom was a little more chill after that. But yeah, my mom was about ready to get rid of Goblin too. But yeah, thank you, Melody, for sending me those stories, and I appreciate it. And I love you. Okay, so this next story was sent to me by a very good friend of mine I met once many years ago at a friend's family's wedding. Her name is Alicia. She is one of those people that's just like really sweet to pretty much everyone she meets. And this story kind of shows just the type of like open and loving person that she is. So I figured I'd want to share it, and that's what I'm going to do. So, when I heard that you were doing this topic, I knew that I wanted to submit. Firstly, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm sending you and your family so much love, healing thoughts, and energy. You gave Goblin a truly beautiful life, and I know you all loved her very much. There you go, right there. Thank you. I have so many amazing memories and stories about my animals that have all since passed away, but my dog Honey is who I consider my dog soulmate. There are so many beautiful memories of him that I want to share with you, but I think one of my most favorite memories is when I first met him and how he picked me. We found Honey's breeder online in Youngstown, Ohio. They were a wonderful person, and they had champion dogs as well as rescues. Honey's mom, grandma, and great-grandma were all champions. That's right. Championship bloodline. No other way to do it. But what I also liked about them is that they rescued a lot of collies and had a big sanctuary for them on their property. I'm a big believer in adopt, don't shop, and rescuing animals whenever possible. So we had a different puppy picked out other than Honey. It was a girl pup and was already set aside for me. When we got there, it was the most beautiful place. A huge home with tons of land and tons of collies of all ages. Old, young, puppies, middle-aged. I was in dog heaven. I wanted to stay forever. They took me to the backyard area, and I met the mama dog first. She was absolutely gorgeous. The father dog was there too, but wasn't with all of the girl dogs for obvious reasons. Because he'd be burying that bone. Then they handed me the puppy that was picked out to be mine. She was so sweet and kind, but something didn't feel right. The rest of the puppies were in the backyard, and I remember looking at them all and trying to see if anything felt like it was meant for me. Understandable. You know, that's chemistry, right? That's chemistry. You gotta have a connection with something that you're going to make an active decision to spend years with. That's why my hoes aren't ugly. So she continues to write. Then out of nowhere, a fluffy, chunky little puppy came running to me, and he was looking me right in the eyes. The most pure and wholesome eyes. I immediately fell in love, and our eye contact didn't break. He leapt into my lap, still looking right at me, and I held him close in my arms and started crying from love and happiness. I never felt that way for anyone or anything before. I looked over at everyone, and they said, "He just chose you. He's meant for you." I don't know how long I sat there holding him and cuddling him in my arms. Nothing else mattered. I just knew that I found a love like never before. He changed my life forever. He was the best thing to happen to me, and I think about him every day. He passed away on 11/13/14, but it hasn't gotten any easier for me. I feel like part of me died with him. I hope you are able to find some comfort and healing in your mind and heart. A dog's love truly is the most pure and wholesome type of love there is. And no truer words have ever been spoken. That actually reminds me of the story, like the way that you speak about unconditional love. Like when Tori got pregnant with Connor, we didn't know, obviously, for the first couple of weeks. But after we knew, we realized that Goblin had known, like pretty much since the first day. Because she was like constantly cuddling Tori and like being super clingy, like more so than usual, and like resting her head on Tori's stomach a lot and stuff like that. And then that protectiveness kind of carried over afterwards, obviously, when Tori started to grow and get bigger because of my gigantic fat baby. And I remember one night I came home from work, and it was dark outside, and Tori was exhausted, obviously. So she was already in bed with Goblin, who slept in the room with us, with the lights off and stuff. And I turned the light on right outside of the door and kind of opened the door to peek in to see if she was sleeping, because, you know, I was about to hop on that PlayStation and game it up, bro. You know what I'm saying? And as soon as I opened the door, Goblin flew off the bed and started barking at me and going crazy. And basically, I've come to determine that if I had not turned that light on outside of the room where she could see me and recognize me, she probably would have taken my leg off or something. She was just so protective of Tori and the baby, and loving, that like she didn't think, oh, it could be my dad coming home. Ha ha ha. It's just an intruder, a scary person. And that always made me, I don't know, that just is like something that's always stood out to me, is that she really did like immediately take to Tori. Even way before she got, you know, pregnant with Connor, which was like 5 years into our relationship. And she was always just like, she could tell the people that I cared about and loved were worth protecting. Tori has often said that the only time she really felt safe walking at night out here was if she had Goblin, because then, you know, no one would come up and bother her or try to holler at her or anything. And then after Goblin was born, and I'll put some pictures of her and Connor up here, but she was like, it was like Connor was one of her puppies. It was just like constant love and patience. And he's a big boy. He likes to wrestle and play and tug and just be a goofball. But she never barked at him, never snapped at him, never complained, maybe huffed a few times, but she's always huffing. And then, you know, one of his favorite games would be to just like lie on top of her and wrestle. Kind of like, it reminded me of like Mowgli on Baloo's belly in the river. But yeah, But yeah, thank you for sending me your story. Honey looks like a beautiful, sweet dog, and your relationship with him was something special. And I hope that those hurts heal eventually. I like to think that emotional pain, especially when it comes to death, is just another reminder to us that we are alive and we do have emotions and feelings, and that's what sets us apart and makes our lives unique. And it's a good way to remember that you loved and cared about this thing, whether it be a dog or a person, so much that after they left our plane of existence, it affects, just the thought of losing them affects you so badly that it causes an emotional reaction. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to know that you feel and that you hurt and that you could love something so much that it can make you have that reaction. So rest in peace to the sweet Honey. He is flying in the sky in another realm doing something cool, guaranteed. And, if the world works the way I like to think it works, you will see him again someday. On to the next story. This one comes from Chrissy Kurlik. She is a sweetheart that I used to babysit when she was much, much, much younger, obviously. Now she's in college, living that boss life, being smart. She actually helps train dogs to be the dogs that do cool shit for people, like turn on lights and help them walk and not have panic attacks and shit. I'm blanking on the name of what they are specifically called, but the special dogs with vests that say, "Please don't pet me, I'm doing my job." But yeah, but even as I remember she was always petting neighborhood stray cats and dogs, and she's just always been a loving person, specifically towards animals. So it's fitting that that's what she's doing in her adult life. And she sent me a short little message that I'm going to read now. So thank you, Chrissy. Love you. I hope everything's going great for you. She writes, "I would like to introduce you to my garbage kitty, Maximus Prime, or Max for short." Fuck yeah, dude. Excellent name. Is there really any other way to get a pet cat other than finding them as a stray in the neighborhood you're living in? Almost 2 years ago, I picked up this sweet baby to come join me at school since my mental health wasn't exactly the most stable and I knew I needed a friend. Word up, bird up. Max turned out to be my best friend. He's the most loving, cuddly, and dramatic baby out there. He wants to be friends with everybody and always seems to be in your way. I have a queen-sized bed, but why would he want to sleep on the bed when he can sleep directly on my chest every night instead? Word. On a more serious note, though, Max has been there for me through it all. I honestly could not ask for a better bestie to help get me through college, life, and everything else in between. This kind of, obviously, it's not a dog, it's a cat, but hey, any pet is a pet. And this kind of reminds me of, we have a cat, a calico girl named Sphincter, because she's an asshole. And we got her as a kitten, basically right at the age where they're ready to leave. She definitely didn't stay long with who she was with before. And Goblin did the thing that Goblin does where she took her in and started raising her as her own baby. And because of that, as a result, Sphincter started acting like a cat or like a dog, instead of a cat, and doing things Goblin would do, waiting at the food bowl for food, not eating the cat food, eating the dog food, sleeping in the same spots Goblin was sleeping, meowing when Goblin would bark, stuff like that. Sphincter also would do this great thing. The apartment we were living in was basically borderline fire hazard, cheap as shit first apartment that had no bedrooms. It had a bathroom, like a walkway dining area, a living room that was the same size as the walkway dining area, which was basically like 6 feet by 7, and a kitchen, and then a porch off the balcony because we were on like the 7th floor, right across the street from Taco Bell. And when we would turn the porch light on, it shot sparks. Like it had burned, parts of it had burned down randomly throughout the years. Like it just was not the best place ever, but it was what we could afford. And unfortunately, when you live in one of those places where there's a crackhead underneath you and a hoarder above you, you get cockroaches. But it was never really a worry for us after we got the cat, Sphincter, because she like hunted the cockroaches. Like every time she would see one, she would like stalk it and smash it and like chew on it. And it really got to the point where before we got her, we would notice like 3 or 4 a week. And then after we got her, we would notice like 1 a week, and it was usually running in terror from her. So, you know, cats are cool, and sometimes they end up being cockroach hunters for you, and that's dope. Here's some pictures, if I can find any, of Sphincter and Goblin just being cute. And another thing to add, too, I think, is after Goblin died, Sphincter, like, looked for her all over the house. And you could tell. Like, she was meowing for her and walking around and trying to find her. Their food bowls were right next to each other. They drank from the same water bowl, which was just a big, giant saucer. And they had a unique relationship. Sometimes they would wrestle with each other and play, but most of the time they would just sleep together and be lazy and live their life and love it. And I think it's sweet that Sphincter looked for Goblin and tried to find her. She's doing okay, though. She's not, like, very depressed or anything. She's just very aware that Goblin is gone. So, yeah. The next story I have is from a very, very good friend of mine, my favorite of the Gifford girls. And mostly I only say that because it pisses off all the other Gifford girls, but also because it's true. Haley Gifford, a.k.a. Big Bugsley, a.k.a. the realest hitter, a.k.a. whatever else. Clifford the Gifford. I don't know. We can fit it in. She's a genius. Super smart. All about, like, rights for people and like saying fuck the man, and she's going to be like a super smart lawyer baby or something. Like, she's going up in life, going that way in life. And she sent me a short story along with this video that I'll probably show within the next couple seconds. So she writes, a short story for you. Winston will be moving to Athens, Ohio with me in August, so we have been introducing him to his new home one weekend at a time. This video is from the drive back after 3 days. Important note about Winston. He has a lot of puppy anxiety, and in my notes I underlined a lot because she emphasized a lot. This happens to affect some dogs' bathroom habits. So not only did Winston not poop or pee for 3 days, but as soon as we got home, he peed an actual river and pooped 4 times in a row, pretty much as soon as he got out of the car. Thank you for that story, Haley, Miss Bug. That's adorable. Winston is this big doof, as you can see, big doofy, beautiful golden idiot. And he one of the sweetest, nicest dogs I've ever met. And I totally believe that. I totally believe that. Goblin was weird like that too. Like it kind of reminds me of she had separation anxiety, especially when I first moved out of my mom's house. When I first moved out of my mom's house, it was just me and Goblin. I had been dating Tori for maybe a year. And I got my own trailer, which was a fucking mistake. I worked at a factory so I could afford it, but I was basically just working to afford to live. Because the trailer park lady that owned everything was just a hustler, right? She took advantage of a young man for me, aka me. Which is fine. Make your money however you want, but it was still shit, right? Anyway, I would go to work during the day and then come home at night, and Goblin was used to that schedule. She wasn't necessarily used to being alone, but my mom lived like right around the corner. She would go check in on Goblin, make sure she had water, let her outside, let her back in. Well, suddenly I switched, right? So then I was home all day, and then I was working nights all the way through. And I think that like fucked Goblin up a little bit. Because then, after a few months of that, I switched back to working days and being home all night. And that's when her separation anxiety went out the roof. And it was clearly because, like, the schedules were changing and she didn't really know how to understand that. And like I said, she's very protective. So she, what happened ultimately was I was at work, fucking doing fiberglass factory work shit. And I got a call on my phone, so I had to step away, answer this call, and it was the landlord telling me that my dog was loose and terrorizing the neighborhood, which is not very Goblin-like at all. So I was like, are you sure it's my dog? Like, I locked the door when I left. Like, there's really no way she could get out. And she's like, yeah, I'm sure it's your dog. And the dog wardens are chasing her right now throughout the trailer park. So I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, I'm going to handle it. I'm at work right now, but I'm going to handle it. Hung up with the landlord, called my mom. I was like, you're home, right? And she said, yeah. And I was like, apparently Goblin is running around the neighborhood, terrorizing it. And the dog wardens are chasing her right now, and I'll be damned if they take my fucking dog and then put her down or some shit because she's a pit bull, and they think that wandering around looking for me is the same as biting a bunch of fucking kids and being a menace, which she was not. She wasn't being a danger to anybody. She was literally just looking for me, because what had happened was when she woke up, she expected me to be there. I was not there. My mom hadn't come to let her out yet, so she spent an hour probably freaking out about me before kicking the air conditioning unit out of my window, jumping out the window, and running around looking for me. And then when the dog wardens pulled up, because she was very big, and I guess it could seem intimidating to people, especially when you're in the hood, you see a pit bull, you don't go up to it, right? So I understand that. So whoever called the dog warden, my neighbors were two hilarious lesbians, like a lesbian couple, and they knew her very well. So by the time my mom had got there, this is how she tells me it, Goblin was in my yard playing, like getting down with her ass in the air and like juking out the dog wardens every time they try to catch her. And the lesbian couple came out of their house, and one of them was like, Goblin, get inside. And Goblin went to my front door and was like trying to push at it, but it was locked. So my mom unlocked it. Goblin went inside. Long story short, the dog warden tried to say that they needed to take Goblin, and my mom was like, no, absolutely not. And they were like, are you the owner? And she's like, my son is the owner. He just asked me to come get her back, so that's what I'm doing. So they like left a card for me to call, and then my mom took care of everything. But I think the funniest part about that was later on that weekend, we have like the local paper, like the Star Tribune or whatever the fuck it's called, and in the paper randomly was a little tiny story, like 3 pages in, that was like, it had my full legal name. Weird, because I never talked to anyone at the paper, like, so I don't know how they got all my information, but so it must have been the dog warden, and he was probably pissed at me because when he called me, he's like, I need you to come down and fill out this paperwork so I could ticket you. And I was like, Yeah, no. If you don't have a ticket already prepared for me, I'm not gonna come sign one. Like, that's not how that works. That's dumb. And you're not like a cop. So until you show up with a cop and a ticket for me, like, I'm not gonna pay. My dog didn't do damage to anyone or anything other than my own air conditioner unit, which she broke. Like, she didn't bite or attack anybody. You're just mad because your fat ass had to chase her around basically to get back to my house. And so I think maybe he was just mad about that. So he probably, was like, I'm going to tell the Star Tribune about him. He's going to be embarrassed in the local news. But yeah, it was really funny because it was like, they basically said, David Stanco's dog runs around neighborhood. And like, it was like, literally like this big, that big of like a column. And I remember reading it and cracking up. But, yeah. So thank you, Haley, for your story and the fun reminder of my dog being a crackhead due to anxiety. And you and your boyfriend are so, so sweet. I wish you all the best in the world. Haley's boyfriend filled my head like a balloon at the last party we were because he told me that I was hilarious and that I should do stand-up comedy. And then Haley told him, oh, he has a podcast. You should check it out. Hey, what's up? This one isn't as funny as other episodes because it's kind of sad a little bit. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I always need fuel for my ego, specifically when it comes to comedy and how funny I am. So I appreciate that. Yeah, then that's the last story that I have. Like I said, I only picked a few. It's been almost an hour of recording time at least. It'll probably be a little shorter when we shave it down. But I just wanted to talk about how the last day that Goblin was alive, like I believe I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this, but she played with Connor all day, even though she was clearly tired. And Jillian was there because we had just recorded the last episode, which the audio failed, and so yeah. And I remember telling Jillian, like, as we were watching Connor and Goblin play, like, that I'm like, I'm really glad that Connor got to meet her and to have the relationship he did with her. And that it was just like really important to me because it's helped him like not be scared of dogs and stuff, but also just like the amount of patience and love that she showed him on a daily basis was important. And I remember turning to Jillian and saying that I'm glad he got to know her and that it was going to suck when she died. And little did I know that she would pass away just a few hours later. But it is not all bad. Of course, Goblin was our only dog at the time. We do have a snake, and we have a named Longboy, and we have a cat named Sphincter, who I talked about earlier. I want to thank everybody who wrote in one more time. Seriously, that, like I said, so many people chose to take time out of their day to write to me and to support me and tell me that I was loved and cared about, and to reach out a hand to my family. My poor mother came over at 1 o'clock in the morning to help me get Goblin all wrapped up so that her body wouldn't make a mess. And then the next day, while I was at work, because I couldn't get off work, they took her to be cremated. And that was of course, the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this video. This right here, this card, the certificate acknowledging that Goblin passed away and was cremated on the 18th. And this is her little tin. It's very cute. Her bag is inside. I'm not going to open the bag because then this table would look like a cocaine party. She's very heavy, even in death, and turned to ash. We Thanosed her ass. so that she can be with us forever. And she's going to sit right here. You can't see it because my coffee cup's in the way. But there is an empty spot on the shelf next to Rasta Banana, where Goblin and her certificate will sit. And she will look over us all in Stank Space for as long as we keep doing this shit. Yeah, so I'm going to spark up this.
Nothing, because YouTube will take our video down if we spark up things. Okay.
I invite you all to do the same. Spark up your little roller in memory of your animals or celebration, whether they be dead or alive. Specifically, in memory and celebration of Goblin, Patricia Stanco. If you have a little fur baby, hug them, love them, kiss them. If you don't, consider adopting one. Consider rescuing one. If you can. Or maybe just go to a pet shelter and volunteer. That works too, you know. But until next time, this is Big Stank. Next episode you see me in, Jillian will be back. Love you guys. I hope you have a beautiful day. Got a beautiful life. And I'm rambling, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it now. Not really. First I want to say, again, just another thank you for everyone that's been there for me. Now I'm going to cut it now. Now. Right now. Bye.